All right, welcome back. We are now on the speaking section of the TOEFL IBT exam, and for this video we're going to be talking about the first of the independent tasks, and this is what a lot of other people refer to as speaking section question 1. However, if you have read the previous page, which was the introduction to the speaking section, you'll realize that this is not a question, this is a task. And so in the TOEFL Excellence program, we do not refer to these as speaking questions. They are speaking tasks. For this particular task type, the skills that you'll need, and some of these are true for the entire speaking section. First of all, the ability to focus. Now, this is different than in the listening section. In the listening section, you had to focus because, you had to listen to the audio file, and you never know, depending on the testing center, how good the equipment is that you're going to be using. In the speaking section, it's a bit different and potentially more difficult, because the reason you have to be really good at focusing in this section is that since the exam is running on a timer that you don't have control of, everybody in the room is going to start speaking at the same time. And if you are not prepared for that, it might be a little bit jarring, and it causes you to lose your train of thought, and you don't have a lot of time to make your responses to these questions or to these tasks. So the ability to focus is really important. In fact, sometimes you might just have to cover your ears and close your eyes and keep your head down and just pretend that you're in the room by yourself, just so you can ignore everybody else. So the ability to focus is very important. The ability to effectively and quickly take notes. Now, this is also very different than in the listening section. As far as with this first independent task, the notes that you're going to be taking are, if you do, they're going to be very small, because you only have 15 seconds to prepare your answer. So when you see the question on the screen, and when you listen to the question being spoken in your headphones, you might want to write down some ideas that will help you to guide your answer. You'll see the question or the task on the screen, and it will look something like this. You'll see that on the screen, but you'll also hear it spoken into your headphones. Now, you could probably read the task much quicker than the speaker in the headphones. So that's one way where you can make this 15 seconds actually a little bit longer. You can actually make that close to 20 seconds. If you read the task and not wait for the person to speak it in your headphones, then you'll write down some different notes about what you should be talking about. Like here it says, talk about a person who has been the biggest inspiration in your life. So once you read that part, you might write down the person's name. And in the master skills that we talk about in the TOEFL Dominator class or course and the master courses, I will give you some tips on how to make sure that you could come up with that answer almost instantly without having to even think. Explain why this person is such an inspiration. So you might want to write down one of the reasons why. Give reasons and examples for your answers. Now here, this is key. It says reasons, plural, not just one reason, at least two. Examples, plural. So you might want to, for your notes, you would write down the person's name, write down reason 1, reason 2, and maybe some examples. Now, there are other ways to get around this situation. If you can only think of one reason, then you just give more examples. But these are the notes that you would write down. So for this particular task type, the notes are very short. It could be just a person's name and a couple other words. At least an intermediate level of English skills and vocabulary. As I've stated in all the other videos, this is true for the entire exam. The ability to speak in a noisy room without being distracted. As I mentioned here, this is related to the ability to focus, because everybody's going to be speaking at the same time. The ability to formulate a response in 15 seconds. We will go over this in the strategy, and the ability to express that response in a clear, concise, comprehensive way in 45 seconds. Now, 45 seconds is the length of the recording. So you want to make sure that your answer doesn't go past that recording time, because the recording will stop at the end of 45 seconds. And if you're still speaking, you will actually get graded down for not having finished your response in that time. And also, if you finish your response and there's still a lot of time left, like if you finish your response after even 40 seconds with 5 seconds of air at the end of the response time, you could get graded down for that as well. So the ability to make a clear, concise, comprehensive response, what we mean there is to give your response to what the task is asking you for, but to do it in a way which makes sense. You have to give those reasons and examples, and all of the things that you say should be related. And a good gauge of if you have made a good response is if you were speaking to another person, they shouldn't have to ask you questions to explain certain things that you said. So this is one of these task types that when you're preparing for the exam, it's a good idea to practice the same response over and over again until you get down the ability to say what you need to say in 45 seconds and to get it to a point where you know what 45 seconds feels like. Now, there is one thing in the video, the official video for this question type that's made by the makers of the exam. It says, don't memorize responses before the test. Well, first of all, it's impossible to memorize a response before the test because you don't know what the task is that they're going to be asking you about. So this is not possible. But what they mean is do not come up with, do not have like a formulaic response, a response where you are just saying something like it makes you sound like a robot, basically. That is possible. It's possible to have too much of a formulaic response, but it is a good idea to have a formula to practice this response so that you know what information you need to say and how to deliver it. But what they want you to do is to sound natural. Now, this is another thing which I think is kind of a fault of the makers of the exam. Because, of course, you want to sound natural. But if you are focused on this, it's kind of like saying, don't think of the color blue. Okay, well, if I say that, then automatically the first thing you're going to do is think of the color blue. So they're saying, don't sound unnatural. Well, if you are trying to not sound unnatural, then you are definitely going to sound unnatural. So if you put forth effort to try to sound natural, you're not going to. So the reason I bring this up is because I want you to just ignore this. Now, that's also something which might be a difficult task, but what I mean is don't worry about this right now, because the more that you practice this, the more natural it will become. And once you know a formula, you have a formula of how to answer these questions, you will be able to answer just about any question using the same type of formula, but of course you will say it in slightly different ways every time. So it will come out sounding natural. So definitely practice. Don't worry about this thing. They say that you'll get graded down if you sound like you're unnatural, but you have to practice before something becomes natural. It's just like if you were learning a game like golf. Okay, they give you lots of tips on what you're supposed to do in order to have a good swing. Keep your head down, keep your shoulders level, and make sure that in your backswing you turn your back to the target and follow through so you're looking at where you want the ball to go. There are all these different little formulaic things that you can do in the beginning, but that's only to get your body to be familiar with what you're supposed to do. And then after a while, it becomes natural. You don't think about those things. They become natural. So that's what I'm trying to say is don't worry about this. Just practice with the formula that we give you. And the more you practice, the more it will become natural and you don't have to worry about that thing at all. And so the other thing here, giving the response in 45 seconds, preparing in 15 seconds, it's really important for this section that when you're practicing for this, you have a clock in front of you that has the seconds, either an old style clock where you can see the hand going around like on a watch, or one like a digital one where you actually see the seconds, because it's important that you understand just what 15 seconds feels like and what 45 seconds feels like. So that way you know what you can do in that time period. That's also part of the formula. Okay, so this, as I've mentioned in the previous pages, these are not really independent tasks. The only thing that's independent about it is that you can decide what to talk about, but you still have to talk about a specific topic. So it's not independent. It's more of a personal question. Here you're talking about a personal experience. Now, they have literally thousands of things that they could ask you about, but there are only so many combinations. And since they do this exam every single weekend, just about every single weekend throughout the entire year, there are only so many different things that they can come up with. So first of all, it's impossible to know what they're going to ask, so you can't memorize a response, but you can know what things they will probably ask about. And these topics are always going to be something like this. Now, in the video, they mention that it's going to be about a person or an event or a memory. That's true, but here are some other things that are a little bit more specific. A best friend, a family member, an inspiration, as in a person or a character. Now, here what they mean is it could be a celebrity, or it could be some character from fiction or a movie, just any person who has been an inspiration. Now, that inspiration could be a best friend, or it could be a family member. So some of these subjects overlap. And of course, in the Master Skills courses, we'll definitely go over how you can use this to your advantage, so you never even have to think about your answer before you get it. That way, that 15 seconds of preparation time will seem like a long period of time because you'll already have your answer. Now, it could also be a cultural or regional tradition. They might ask you about some tradition in your hometown or home county, home country, or it could be a family tradition. Now, traditions also have to do with holidays. They might ask you about a holiday. What is your favorite holiday? All right. And then we also have favorites. So these are the main things here. A best friend, a family member, an inspiration, a cultural or regional tradition, a holiday, and favorites. Now, all of these things overlap. So you could talk about a holiday that has to do with your best friend or a family member. So if you have a list of like this of possible things that you could talk about, like keep in mind who your best friend is. Think about some things that you've done together on holidays, or favorite things that you like doing with that friend. Or you think of a family member that you're always going to use if they ask about a family member, because you probably have some memories of holidays or favorite things that you've done together, or why that person is an inspiration to you, because family members and friends can be inspirations. So all of these things overlap. If you keep these in mind, then there is a way where you can answer just about any question that they ask you without even having to think about it. And like I said, that will be covered in the master courses of the TOEFL Excellence System. Now, the example, we already went through this one here, so let's take a look at a couple other examples. Describe the person who is your best friend. Explain why this person is your best friend, giving reasons and examples to support your idea. Now, this part here, reasons and examples, that's one of the things that it's going to be a part of this task. No matter what they ask you, they might word it in a different way, but you always have to have, a couple reasons why you're giving the response that you're giving, and some examples of why. So that's an important thing. This is the part where I'm talking about that there has to be some sort of a formula. So if I said, my best friend is Bob because he's a really cool person, and I just think he's a great inspiration to me, and I just like him a lot. We've known each other all of our lives, and we do like to do lots of things together. Okay, well, there I give a whole bunch of information, but as I mentioned before, a good response would be something where the person that you're speaking to doesn't have to say, oh, tell me more about this. Because maybe I said, yeah, we do lots of things together. Well, what kinds of things? He's a real inspiration to me. Why? Why is he an inspiration? Give me some examples. He's a really cool person. Okay, why is he a cool person? So you don't want to just give a list of things like that. You have to give reasons for what you're saying and examples to support those reasons. All right, so next one here. Describe a favorite pastime activity from your childhood. Okay, so this is having to do with memory. That pastime activity could be something that you used to do with a family member or a friend. So that's why I was saying it's important to keep that list in mind right here. Remember all those different things and come up with a few examples that you could use no matter what they talk about. You know, think of a favorite memory. It could be some Christmas one year where you were with your best friend, but you're also with your family, and those people are inspirations to you somehow. So it covers the tradition, the holiday, and maybe some favorite thing that you did on that day. So therefore, with that one example, you could answer just about any of these questions, or any question that has to do with one of these types of things. So let's see another one. Talk about a tradition that's unique to your family, community, country, or culture. Now, they might not be this thorough. They might just say a family tradition or a tradition in your country. Describe what makes it unique. In other words, different from other countries. Give reasons and examples. So all of the tasks are going to be like this. Now, if you notice, on all three of these examples, there's no question mark here. There's no question mark there. There's no question. And it's telling you to do something. Give reasons and examples. Describe. Explain. It's not telling you, it's not asking you a question. So these are not independent questions. They're independent tasks. Now, there might be a question in it. It might say, who is your best friend? Describe why this person is your best friend and give reasons and examples. Well, still, there's a question in the task, but it's not a question. It's a task. So that's my whole point about that. So basically, that's it. Now, this video does give other really good information about this. I just wanted to point out this part. This is something that you should just try to not worry about. Just forget about it, because unless you're already a very advanced level English speaker already, you're going to have some sort of formula to fulfill the task. But it's been proven with lots of different activities that people do that the more they practice doing something the same way over and over and over and over again, doing it exactly the same way, the more natural that becomes, so that they don't even have to think about doing it. So if you practice answering the same question, like if you practice answering this question over and over and over again until your response fits perfectly into 45 seconds, that means if you get a different question like this, you'll be so used to doing it this way that you will naturally give this response in almost the same way using different words, and it'll be the same length of time. So practicing the same question over and over again until you get it perfectly, that is very beneficial for you. So when they talk about don't memorize answers, well, first of all, none of the examples that you're going to get in any textbook is exactly going to be used on the exam. You might get something which is very similar, but if you've practiced all of the examples that you see in this course and in any other textbooks or anything like that, when you get a different question, you'll be so used to answering this that it's going to come out sounding perfectly natural, even though you are unconsciously using a formula. And that's my whole point about why this is not good advice. But the rest of the information in the video is good. It does also give you some information about the next speaking task, which we will go over in another lesson. But that's it for the first speaking task, what some people call speaking question 1, the independent personal memory or personal experience. This is here, like it says, the personal experience, because you're talking about something that happened to you in the past, or some idea, or some memory, some fondness, some favorites. And that's pretty much it for this first independent task about the personal experience. This is what some people refer to as speaking section question 1, but is really the first of the independent tasks about your personal experience. So thanks for stopping by, and we will see you in the next lesson.